Today's webinar from your MLS staff is called Coming Soon Listings, everything that you need to know. And there are quite a few things to know when you're doing a coming soon listing. So there's several things we're going to go over and talk about when you might use coming soon listings, what they're commonly used for, and all those kind of things to watch out for and things you need to do if that's something you decide that you and your client could be served by doing. So I'm going to go ahead and hop in here, and I am going to share my screen, hopefully. And hopefully you can see that here, my first slide. So today's webinar, we're going to cover what is the coming soon no showing status, when you might use that. There's a listing form to be aware of, several rules and regulations, and then what does listing entry look like? So what is coming soon listings? So it is a property status. It is defined in the rules and regulations where you do have an effective exclusive right to sell or exclusive agency agreement in place, but your listing needs more time to prepare for market. So they are entered into the MLS to inform participants and subscribers and also consumers, because these listings do syndicate. We'll talk about that as well. So this will be a marketing and showing preparation period, but this listing is not yet eligible for showing appointments. So it does show up in the database as a separate property status as coming soon no showings. You're going to see that on a separate section on the hot sheet. It will require a signed addendum, which I'm going to go over as well. It must follow rules for MLS entry. So there's things about how this listing displays and some information to put on your listing about it. And they do syndicate. So from the time that your listing goes on MLS, it will syndicate to IDX websites. It's going to go to portal search sites like realtor.com and sites like that. It's also going to be included in client subscription emails and client portals as well. Listings in this property status, even though they do syndicate, they're not considered to be on market yet. And so those days, while it's in the status, are not going to count toward days on market. So once it flips over to active status, then that is going to be whenever your days start counting. And it should be evident from the name, but there are no showings allowed during this time and no exceptions. So whether you're the listing office or another licensed agent, this applies to everyone while it is in that status. So when might you use a coming soon listing status? So as the definition says, it requires more time to prepare for market. So sometimes maybe there's some upgrades or updates, repairs, things like that need to be made. But your seller wants to go ahead and get that on the multi-list. Maybe you want to get some professional photos done. So you're waiting on that, or for whatever reason. But this is a time to where it will create some marketing buzz, because it is going to all of those websites and every participant that's on the MLS is going to see it. You can use this status between 1 and 14 days. Believe it or not, we have seen people put it in with 0 days, and what happens then? It just goes to active status. So make sure it's at least 1 day from the current date and up to 14 days in the status before it's required to be active. You do want to be sure to present all offers. In the market that we had in the last couple of years, there were some times where offers were made sight unseen. So that is a possibility. So if you do receive offers, you still need to go ahead and present those. It cannot already be pending when it's entered. So if you already have an offer the day you got your listing contract signed, you don't want to go ahead and put that in as coming soon. Also, you may belong to another MLS, and if you have put it in as active status on that MLS, we don't want you to go and put it on coming soon status on SOMO MLS. And one thing to really pay attention and consider and talk to your sellers about is the start showing date. So the time between your begin date and the start showing date was going to be in coming soon status. On that start showing date, that listing will go to active status automatically on MLS. Once you sign your agreement to make your listing coming soon, that start showing date is fixed. So our rules state that you can't change that date. So if suddenly you say, we got everything done, let's go ahead and make the listing active, your sellers need to understand that the start showing date is the start showing date. And you cannot extend it either, even if you haven't done it for 14 days. And another thing to note is you can't go back to coming soon. So maybe it went active and you thought, oh, we want to cancel and do that again. There is a time period where you have to wait if you want to do that again. And also it can't be canceled and just relisted back as coming soon. Or if it goes to active, we can't update it back to coming soon. So keep those things in mind, especially when you're talking with your sellers. Now we mentioned addendum, and we've got a screenshot of it here. This is called those coming soon no showings addendum. It is SOMO form number 102. You should have this in your forms library. And there's a couple of things to note about the form. First of all, it's required in our rules. It says that this form should be added to the listing documents. You want to make that a private form because it's got your seller's information on there. You don't want that to go and also syndicate. But there's a couple of places to note, and this is where a lot of agents get tripped up, is on the dates. So here we've got highlighted, said listing contract has a begin date of, and then a blank where you write that in. And what that correlates to is the listing contract. So our MLS states that we have a begin date field, and that is defined as the effective date of your listing contract or a date others specified within the SOMO withhold from MLS form or the coming soon no showing addendum. So that's kind of wordy, but what it's saying is this effective date here written into your listing agreement, or the last signature date, whichever date is the latest, should correlate to the begin date field on your MLS listing. And if you want that date to match your coming soon addendum, either this effective date or signature date, whichever's latest, is the date that you're going to enter on line 5. Here where it says listing contract begin date. The other date that you're going to fill in on the addendum is your start showing and MLS active status date. So that's the date that the begin date is when it's going to go in MLS and it's going to start being on MLS in coming soon status. Your start showing date is whenever it's going to change from coming soon status to active status. And the cool thing about that is you don't have to go in and manually update it. It's going to do that automatically on that date that you set in that field. So there, once you choose coming soon on the listing, I'll show you that. It's going to give you the option to put in a start showing date. And so that date is going to be written here on line 53. Now I've highlighted this little note where it says, in the event of a conflict between the terms of this addendum and your listing contract, the addendum will supersede, and that does include the begin date. So if you've written in a begin date later, than what's on your listing contract date, then this form will supersede. And you'll note down here also, it says this addendum is hereby a part of the original listing contract. So keep that in mind as well. All right, let's move to some rules and regulations. This is found in section 2.11, and it is a pretty sizable block of rules and regulations. It talks about some of the things we already discussed, requirements to use the form and the length of time that it can be in that status, but several other things to note is that some things need to be done on your listing to convey clearly to other participants and also consumers, because these are being syndicated to the public, right? That the listing is coming soon and not yet available for showings. So one of those is making a note in the marketing remarks field. You want to put coming soon, no showings until whatever your start showing date is. You're also going to want to add text to your primary photo that clearly states coming soon, no showings. So whenever that comes up on a property search, that's clearly going to be shown as the first photo. And then also, again, no showing applies to everyone. So you can't use this to circumvent any MLS rules or create a pocket listing. So this does include the listing office as well. You don't want to be tempted to sneak in any showing appointments during that time. Then on the start showing or active date, you do want to make sure that it is available for showings, and that showings can be scheduled, not just by you, but by any other cooperating participant. After the listing's been put in the MLS as coming soon, you can put a sign out. That's a common question. So you can put out a for sale sign, but it also needs to indicate coming soon with a sign writer. And we do try to keep those in stock here at the DSBR office. And any of these are considered violations of MLS rules. So it is important to follow them all. And if you have questions about them, please contact your MLS support team. So we don't want to issue any fines. We want to help you with any questions that you have. So here we are at listing entry. When you put in your listing, we talked about the begin date, and you'll notice help text on here. It's cut off, or my screenshot would be way too small to see. That the begin date is the effective date of your listing contract, or the begin date written on your coming soon addendum, whichever's later. That's the date you're going to put in here. And that's the date it's going to start showing on MLS in coming soon status. Farther down, almost to the very end of the main fields tab, you're going to see a section called listing status. And by default, the status shows as active. So when you're putting in a regular listing and you put it in, you're going to choose active. You don't have to change anything because it's already defaults to that. But when you're doing a coming soon listing, under status, you're going to use the drop-down menu to select coming soon, no showings. It's going to remind you to get that addendum added to your documents. And then you're going to see a field called start showing date. And that's the date that correlates to that line 53 on the form, the SOMA 101 form. That date you're going to enter in here. And that's the date that automatically your listing is going to roll over to that active status. So again, don't forget to upload it to the listing documents. The dates is where we see the most confusion from agents. And so we do go and we take a look and audit those just to make sure everything's squared away. So if there's any issue, we'll probably reach out to you. Let's see. I believe that is the end of my slides here. So thank you so much for joining us today. And if you have any questions, I didn't see any in chat or the Q&A, but please reach out to us at support@gsbr.com. Thank you so much.